Hello, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, and this is another video tutorial in PHP for the new Boston. In this video I'm going to be talking on the subject of operators, but we're going to be using comparison operators, and I'm going to be showing you how they work and what they're useful for. Now let's go back to our previous examples of having variables. I'm going to say 10 and number 2, I'm going to make that equal to 9. Now comparison operators are basically when we compare one or more values. We can compare any amount of values we want. In this example we're going to be comparing sort of a maximum of 3 values just to demonstrate, but without going too far over time. Now for this example we're going to be using if statements. So if you haven't already learned about if statements, go to the video about if statements and have a look at that so you can get a general idea. But as far as this is concerned, I'm going to set up an if statement with my block just under here as well. So I've got the block of data that's going to be executed here if this equals true. Now remember, this inside here evaluates to either true or false. Therefore if I was to say if true, I'm going to echo out inside, so this is inside our block. I'm going to refresh and that says inside. However, if I was to change this to false and I refresh, it's not going to echo anything out because this has evaluated automatically to false. I've used the false keyword. Now it's the same as if I was to do 1 equals 1. Now you probably noticed I've just put 2 equal signs in there. Now remember, when we assign values we use a single equal sign. However, when we use double equal sign, we compare. So we're comparing the number 1 to the number 1. Now the number 1 is equal to the number 1. This means is equal to, so we're asking the question, is 1 equal to 1? And this statement will evaluate to true. So we are going to echo out the text inside. So let's refresh inside. Now we can say if does 1 equal 2? It doesn't, so we're not going to echo this text out. Now the other comparison operators, sorry, are not equal to. So what we do is we use an exclamation mark and then we still use a single equal sign. So we've got 2 characters here. We've got an exclamation mark and a single equal sign, and this in plain English reads to does 1 or doesn't 1 equal 2, or does this not equal this? Now the answer is yes, it doesn't. 1 doesn't equal 2, so therefore this is going to evaluate to true. So 1 doesn't equal 2, therefore we're going to echo out the text inside. Now if we change this back to a 1, does 1 not equal 1? Well, 1 does equal 1, so this is going to evaluate to false. So let's refresh and we don't echo the text out. So now what we can do is start working with things like greater than and greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. So for example, just to let you know beforehand, this can also be written like this. So we've got sort of conflicting less than and greater than signs. So 1 is equal to 1, so we're not displaying anything. However, if we change this back to 2 as I've shown in the previous example, it's still working. So it can be this or this, it's entirely up to you. I always prefer this. I just think it's a lot easier to read and process in your mind, because we tend to think of this as sort of maybe perhaps a negative thing, like we're exclaiming something, so it doesn't equal to, it's just a lot easier to read. So let's go on to incorporating our variables up here that I've assigned earlier into this if statement. Now I want to say is number 1 greater than number 2? So in here I'm going to change this text, so I'm going to say either yes or no. So yes is going to be our text, we're echoing out, otherwise echo no. So we're using an if-else statement now. So if number 1 is greater than number 2, we say yes, otherwise we say no. So obviously in this case number 1 is equal to 10 and number 2 is equal to 9, so number 1 is bigger than number 2, so, or greater than in real terms. So we're echoing out the text yes. Now if I was to change this to smaller than, so is or less than, is number 1 less than number 2? it's not, so this statement here is going to evaluate to false, and we say no, it's not, so that's the text we echo out to the screen. Now what we can also do is we can say is number 1 greater than or equal to. Now if we just left this as greater than and we had 10 and 10, 10 isn't greater than 10, it's equal to 10. So this is still going to evaluate as false. So we're reading, is 10 greater than 10? And the answer is, of course, no. It stays as no. However, if we incorporate an equal sign in, remember when we did the not equals, we're incorporating the equal sign. This now reads, is number 10 greater than or equal to number 2? And in fact this statement is going to evaluate to true because 10 isn't greater than but it is equal to. So we get the text yes echoed, and we can do exactly the same with less than or equal to. We're still going to be receiving the value yes because it is still equal to. As well, if we were to put this as 2, this is now smaller than, it's not equal to but it is smaller than, so when we do refresh we still get the value yes echoed out. Okay, so now these are the comparison operators. We're comparing two different numbers or two different variables. As it stands, this may as well read obviously 2 and 10 because we're just replacing the variables inside here. But however simple they may seem, they are extremely useful. You'll probably find yourself using the double equals a lot if you're creating code. For example, if a user was to submit a password through a form, you may want to check if their password is equal to maybe a preset password or a password stored in the database. And therefore what we'd do is we'd do something like, if we were to have a preset password, I'm going to set my password up here to password, so obviously quite a basic password, and I might say if password, so it helps if you read it out as English, if password equals password, then we echo correct, otherwise, so else, echo incorrect. So the way we read this is in English would be password, the variable password equals password. This is the password that needs to be matched. Now we say if the password, so the password up here, is equal to password, correct, otherwise incorrect. So refresh, at the moment it's correct. However, if we were to change this to something else, it's incorrect. So you can see how on a daily basis this could come into great use, and these comparison operators can help you operate your program really, really well.